Thanks for coming out and watching the oxymoronic Reddit Professional Show, where I showcase the best and worst of the internet. Here I comment on brilliant and hilarious comment chains regarding dumb shit on the internet for you to enjoy. Make sure to subscribe, hit the little bell button so that you get notifications every time we come up with a new video. Enjoy this week's show.
Life pro tip: if a friend or a family member gets diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer, in the early stages try to find out what their favorite songs of all time are. In this way you would be able to create a playlist for them that could be of great benefit in the later stages of the disease. This is great advice. I did that for my dad. Whenever we would go on a drive, I played the Elvis channel on Sirius XM. He really enjoyed that. At the memory care facility where he stayed, he would dance and clap along with the music, which was amazing because I'd never seen him do that before. Alzheimer's disease is devastating, but it can have an odd effect on people. My dad was a kind but extremely anxious person. But he also became the nicest, most caring, most genuine person I've ever seen in my life. It's like I got to see his true essence for the first time. I attribute that to music. Don't get me wrong, it's a horrible disease that wreaks havoc on the patient and his/her family. The person is taken away one piece at a time. There's disorientation, confusion, anxiety, fear, and helplessness. But music brought him joy, for a few moments anyway. It was a real gift in the middle of all that chaos. Of course it didn't last, and I knew that things had gotten really bad when he didn't recognize "We Will Rock You." That was his favorite song, but he thought he was hearing it for the first time. Whenever it came on, he would tell me what a genius Freddie Mercury was, even though he had told me 100 times before, and of course I knew already. So we switched roles and I told him everything he used to tell me about Freddie. He was enthralled by it. I told about Bohemian Rhapsody and then I played it for him. I also told him about the song "The Show Must Go On." He didn't remember a minute after I told him, but he really enjoyed himself. Sorry to hear. My grandpa is showing some late signs of dementia right now currently, and it's tough. Bringing up the Elvis channel made me smile because whenever I come home my dad asks me to turn that channel on. I'm not too much of a fan, but whatever makes my dad smile makes me smile. What a big kind heart you have. I wish you the best. Also get them to tell you about their early childhood and their parents/siblings. Many people regress in age and find comfort in hearing about their family. Often they talk about looking for their parents or are concerned that their parents don't know where they are. Oh yes, it's awful. My dad would wake up every night crying because he thought his parents died last week. My grandfather died in 1977 and my grandmother in 1996. But to him, it just happened and he was grieving all over again. Worst thing I ever heard. Crazy reading this on Reddit. I had no idea. We just had to get my grandmother into assisted living due to dementia, and every day we visit she wants to know if we can take her to her dad so he knows where she is. She has never once mentioned her father to me before in my 27 years. I'm happy we can still have a conversation with her some days. I didn't see her for 2 weeks. Before I left I told her I had to go show a house. When I came back 2 weeks later, after her asking if my mom divorced my dad yet because he won't cut his long hair, he's bald, she asked if my clients liked their house I showed them. Crazy, those two questions were asked right after the other. This is exactly what makes loving a person with Alzheimer's so confusing and difficult. When my mom was far into it, she no longer recognized me at all, thought my brother was her brother, became completely nonverbal, and yet, when my dad died, she sat next to his body holding his hand and patting him for 30 minutes before she wandered off. They aren't gone completely. It's just that they aren't there in any way we understand. Just tell your grandma that you love her. Over and over. She will understand it for a moment, which is all we've got. Good idea. For whatever reason, music seems to really stick in a person's memory. My parents couldn't remember much, but could still sing their favorite songs. I saw the Glenn Campbell farewell tour, that Saab could still play the guitar like he invented it. And he needed very little help from the teleprompter with the lyrics. Music engages many sections of the brain. Might have something to do with that ick. Music we love is transcribed with memory in our limbic system in our brain, which is towards the lower center of our brain. The disease attacks from the top/front first, so the limbic system is last to go, which is why someone who is at more advanced stages can snap out of a more withdrawn state and seem to bring their spirit/soul/identity back to the forefront. It's super sad that my grandfather has dementia, but I'm appreciative that he's been telling me and my family new life stories that he wouldn't have shared with us when he was fully sound of mind. It's like getting to know parts of his life that he has been hiding. Sadly, it probably won't be long before it's all been forgotten because he sometimes doesn't even recognize who I am. I'm sorry if this question is intrusive, but can you tell me the sort of thing he would share with you that you know he wouldn't when he was sound of mind? I'm not who you asked, but I lived next to my grandma that had Alzheimer's. My grandma was super prim and proper, just super waspy, and pretended that her family had no issues. When she started to succumb to Alzheimer's, she talked more about the family drama and was a lot more blunt. She stopped sugarcoating why certain family members left home when they did and why we didn't talk to certain other family members. It was hard to hear, but it was eye-opening and interesting. You're all right, it's totally fine. He's sort of like a super smart dude, but he really kept a lot out secrets about him doing really dumb things as a kid. The only things that he ever admitted to are how he blamed himself for his brother's death as a child. He has talked about lying about his age and ability to go into the military and had to be honorably discharged because he couldn't do it. He has what you today call Asperger's, and I have it because it's genetic, but he's talked about the years of his life where he was working for a couple weeks and bumming around for months just fishing and hanging around the streets along the East Coast, which isn't where he grew up, which is where he's back living to. He's talked about his first wife and divorce. It's super surreal hearing how one of the most intelligent people I know being a dumb teenager and 20-something. I have a client who uses aromatherapy with her Alzheimer and dementia patients. She told me that the last sense to go is smell, and it's also the sense most strongly related to memories. She said apple pie calms patients because it's typically tied to happy, warm childhood memories. I don't know if her claim is valid, but I hope it is. I hope not to completely burst your bubble, but impaired sense of smell is an early warning sign of dementia, and lack of smelling specific smells can be linked to specific kinds of dementia. For example, not being able to smell banana is linked to Parkinson's dementia. However, I'm sure the care and effort and pampering that goes into aromatherapy for PTS with dementia makes them feel quite special and relaxed. Also ask them a lot of questions about their childhood and life and write or record what they say. Because sadly someday they might not remember it. They forget literally everything and everyone. My grandparents literally forgot they were married. My grandfather didn't know who his children or wife was anymore, but he would have occasional breakthroughs where he would snap back to reality and remember who I was and that I moved away to go to school, and he'd ask about class before asking who was that lady, aka his wife of 50+ years. My grandmother forgot about her husband, but she never forgot who I was. That's something that always stuck with me. That seems to imply that you were a newer impression, obviously an incredibly meaningful one, carved into her brain, and apparently in dementia that sort of thing lasts longer than the one their partner made so long ago. It's about what their brain identifies with, and your ID tag is much fresher. Both my grandmas currently suffering from dementia. Two key things I learned which have helped is, when they ask where friends and family are, who have long since died years ago, simply tell them they went to the store or are on their way over. It saves you from telling them that somebody had died, and they have to re-experience the news again and again, and they forget about it later anyway, so they don't expect them to show. Watching sports is an activity that can keep them occupied and focused for a few hours, unless they outright hate sports. It's generally faster paced, keep a lot of relevant info on screen at all times, and are constantly updating you as it moves along. It beats watching movies to shows where you have to remember plot points from earlier. Number 1 is especially important. To add something to this, I remember seeing something on here at one point where a woman put together a fun whiteboard for her mom to be able to see when she woke up in the care home and no one was there with her. Full of happy thoughts and telling her she was okay. I really like that idea. Related question: what is the process of getting diagnosed? I am concerned my dad is going down that path, and would rather get ahead of it. Take your dad to his primary care physician and ask for an assessment. They will do some preliminary tests. If he doesn't pass them, they should refer him to a neurologist for more testing. I knew things were far worse than we expected at the neurological assessment test when Dad couldn't remember all 3 of his kids. He completely forgot about my sister. We had to move him to a board and care home immediately. I really hope your dad doesn't have this disease. If he does, check out the Alzheimer's Association for help. They have incredibly helpful classes for how to interact with your loved one. Thanks for the advice. The main issue now is he's too stubborn to be willing to go for an assessment. You might be able to speak with his PCP privately and mention your concerns. Could be a phone call or even just catching them outside the door before the appointment. That way, they're clued into what's going on, because often people with early stages of memory loss compensate well enough to hide it from being noticed in a quick doctor's visit. My grandma was too stubborn, and I wish we had made her get assessed sooner. I think part of the stubbornness comes from a self-awareness that their memory is not the same, and a fear of a diagnosis. Ultimately, a diagnosis didn't change things, so don't worry too much if he's not yet ready for that. Just focus your energy on staying aware of what's going on, and helping him to function to the best of his ability. There are many things you can do without a diagnosis to make sure he stays safe and has good quality of life. For example, because I knew what was going on, I discouraged my grandma from driving, even before her diagnosis. Good luck to you as you navigate all of this. I have not read all the comments, but I have something to say. Based on my mother developing dementia and becoming unable to recognize me for about a year and a half before she died. It's fantastic that this topic is being discussed and the advice is wonderful, and I did play music on my iPhone for my mom and we sang, and I'll cherish those moments until my last breath. But here is what I want to tell you and what I still regret not doing more. Talk now, all the time, to you older generation family, even talk more with your parents and your siblings. Talk and listen to each other while there is still time. My dad died when I was 26 and my mom, 4 years ago when I was 55. I would give anything to have talked more to them than I got to. The world is changing and people don't talk as much anymore. Don't let that go, everybody. Do it now. Ask them questions about the lives, about things you don't know, talk to each other with love. Do it now. This is not bitter regret or grief or anything like that. It's just, if I could have one thing, I wish I had known my parents better, as people, because that's who I miss. Over the last year I have made an effort to get to know my brother better, and man, I know I'm lucky because he's a good guy. I know some aren't worth the trouble, but I can honestly say we are closer than ever. I'm trying and I hope you do too. Thank you, I needed this. I'm calling my papa in the morning.
If you enjoyed this week's effective way to waste time, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. If you are enjoying the series, leave me a comment below. A special shout out to the content creators. You frickin' rock.